Good afternoon, folks. We will get started here in a minute while other people are joining, so just hang tight. Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome to our Watson Learn webinar series. My name is Sharon Pillar. I'm the founder and executive director of the Pennsylvania Solar Center. And we're very excited to have this very special webinar today. And we're joined by partners Rob Rafson from the Solar Faithful and Sparrow Francis from Pennsylvania Interfaith Power and Light. And also with my colleague Leo Kowalski, Director of Transformation at the Get Solar team. And this is a topic that is close to my heart. I don't usually get to talk about this too much in most of our work, but one of the reasons I started the Solar Center was because of my spirituality and my beliefs and caring for creation. So it goes to that, and I think many people who are here today are here maybe for similar reasons. So thank you for coming here and being with us today. So just some housekeeping things. If you have a question, please put it in the Q&A feature. You'll see the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen or somewhere on your screen. And also, we invite everyone here, if you could put your name and your organization in the chat, that's really nice for our speakers to see, but also the audience to see who's here. So appreciate you being able to do that. If you have a question, please put it in the Q&A because we're not able to talk directly with you, unfortunately, today. Um, so we'll get started. And I just want to tell you a little bit about the Pennsylvania Solar Center, first of all. Our mission is that we provide trusted guidance to usher all Pennsylvanians into the clean energy economy to reach a sustainable and resilient tomorrow. And we envision a world that is powered by energy that's reliable, affordable, and sustainable for all. I want to always thank our financial supporters. I don't have our foundations on here. Shame on me, I should, because they are some of our biggest supporters, the Heinz Endowments, the Hillman Family Foundation, and through our work with Pennsylvania, our Philadelphia Energy Authority, the William Penn Foundation and Green Family Foundation, and many others, and also our corporate sponsors as well. So if you have some of you are on there, please we would appreciate your support. It allows us to keep our doors open. The way the Pennsylvania Solar Center works is that we have sort of a three-bucket approach. We work to transform, educate, and advocate. And Leo is the director of transformation and our Get Solar solar consulting services. So he's going to talk in depth about that here in a little bit. But we also work across the state to do things to educate, such as webinars and other types of media outreach and education. And we're also have a presence in Harrisburg, where we're working on solar policy every day, trying to move some of these things forward. So appreciate you engaging on that. I did want to announce this is our first public announcement, although some of you might have gotten an email about this yesterday. We are working in collaboration with Solar United Neighbors on a very interesting initiative, which some of you may be interested in. We're calling it Energy Independence for Pennsylvania. Our goal is to train up to 100 volunteers across the state, and we're really focusing in rural areas. Not that others in urban areas can't apply to this, but to try to educate people on energy literacy. So where does our energy come from? Why are energy prices rising the way they are? And how can we and what the impacts of that and what we can do about that. And clean energy, energy efficiency, renewables, storage are all very important, integral part of that. So you can volunteer for this. We have an in-person training on May 16 in Westmoreland County, and we're starting in Western Pennsylvania. But if you can make it from anywhere in the state, we invite you to come. I'll put that registration in the chat once we get started. But I did want to talk about that. This is a great way for you to engage. We'll train you on a presentation you can take out to your community and social media posts and types of ways you can interact with your community and get the word out about energy. And we think the best way to do that is for people who are living in your community to do that. So hope you think about that opportunity. And it's just a year-long program. So I'll just move on from there. And from that, I want to turn this over to Rob, who I'm sure can introduce himself, but Rob is the executive director of Solar Faithful and has over 42 years of experience in the environmental engineering, design, construction, and operation of environmental improvement projects in the US and abroad. He has a mechanical engineering degree from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and also is also a licensed professional engineer. Rob has achieved recognition in energy efficiency, patented innovative soil remediation technology, gaseous emission controls, and brownfield redevelopment. And he's also the founder and president of the Muskegon-based solar company Charthouse Energy. Rob believes that energy transition can have a transformative effect in our economy through a just transition, and believes in using solar development as an entrance ramp for those traditionally left out of the energy and construction industries. So we're so happy to have you here with us, Rob. And I'm sorry, and I messed up a little bit. Before Rob starts, I wanted to introduce you to Sparrow of Interfaith Power and Light, who's with us to tell us a little bit about Interfaith Power and Light. And thank you so much for helping and partnering with us, Sparrow, on this exciting, the webinar, but hopefully even beyond that to get some faith communities to move forward. So would you tell us a little bit about you and Interfaith Power and Light?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me speak. I'm so excited that we were able to partner and just help spread the word about this event because solar is one of the ways that we build brighter futures. And so as part of our commitment to that, I wanted to share today that we have an energy resources guide to help congregations or communities of faith do energy audits. And part of our theory of change is that we describe ourselves as a network of faith communities working for climate justice as a moral issue, not a political one. And so we work to resource faith communities to do the work that they already are doing and to help them do the things that are aligned so that they are living in right relationship with their morals, their values, the scripture that they're talking about each week. And so I will share in the chat in a little bit our energy resources guide. And solar is one way that we build community resilience. So we are currently looking at how to build community resilience in other ways. Planting trees and native pollinator gardens is another. But we also believe that faith communities in particular can be on the front lines of climate crisis response by serving as resilience hubs. You'll see more about this topic from us soon as we're working on a curriculum and a facilitator guide for faith communities to use. But in the meantime, I have a webpage for one of our sister organizations, Minnesota IPL, if you'd like to learn a little bit more about resilient hubs. And lastly, I just wanted to draw some attention to the main program we're working on right now, which is called Roots, Branches, and Hands, where we're building tree equity by educating community leaders, resourcing tree projects, and distributing no-cost native trees in the neighborhoods that need them most. And that is one way that we create less of a strain on our energy, for example, because trees create shade that reduces the temperature. So I will also put the link in the chat to visit that webpage to learn a bit more about our current programs. But thank you very much for letting me share that today.
No, we're so glad that you did. Thank you so much, Vero. And I think if there are congregations that want to become a part of IPNL, there are ways to do that too on your website, maybe, or
Yes, absolutely. You can learn more. The links are just at the top of the website for our website page that I put in there.
great. Thank you so much. Well, now I will turn it over to Rob. And thank you, Rob. And let me
Thank you.
go to your slides.
Yeah, I've been trying to figure out how to put solar on churches for over 20 years. And when I use the term churches, I mean all faith traditions. It's just an easier term to use when we're talking about faith organizations. Um, and you can go to the next slide. There isn't the point isn't about me, but the problem that we've found when we're connecting um, faith organizations is bringing both the expertise and the financing options to solar projects. And now we're adding additional resiliency. We're building 13 resilient hubs in Detroit right now. And that includes solar storage, backup generation, energy efficiency, electrification, EV rideshare vehicles and EVs. So really making these organizations, many have food pantries and soup kitchens, become the place to go when either the utilities or the government fail to serve their communities. And so we have effectively doubled the number of churches in Michigan in the last 3 years that have solar, and we're poised to double again in the next 2 years. Next. So our mission, as I said, is to bring the technical expertise and the financing options, financing itself, um, uh, to all faith traditions. But we specifically are focused, at least half of our projects are in historically underserved communities, low income, BIPOC, and specifically looking for all traditions, not just Christian. And our vision is to see faith organizations be the leader in the equitable transition. And one thing that we have found here that's quite interesting is that of the churches that have gotten solar, we we have found that the every organization has said that their community felt stronger attachment to the church. Half said that congregants got solar, and half have said that they had an increase in attendance, new congregants, and that can be a really amazing driver as well. And wouldn't be funny if solar was the savior of organized religion. Next. So I think we've said a little bit about who Solar Faithful is, but I guess the question now is, why is solar important, and why now? I think the largest part and the reason for the importance of the energy transition, obviously there is the global issues of climate change. There is the local issues of the health impacts of generation of fossil fuel generation on people. And then there is the economic driver. And this administration has shortened the sunsetting of the incentives. If there are anybody in the group that want to contract by July the 4th of this year, which we're not expecting, then there's a 4-year window to build. If it's after that, then to get to the incentives that are available right now, we have to be complete by the end of next year, December 31st of 27. So we can help by bringing a proposal and putting together a proposal for free, and then have further discussions to uh, bring the different financing options next. So, yeah, in the next, our goals, we have 3 different goals. One was to double solar in Michigan, and we have already achieved that. Next. As I said, that half of our partners, community partners, are in low-income communities. Next. And I think ultimately what I'd like to see is that commercial buildings right now have an adoption rate of between 3.5% and 4%. The adoption rate um, for churches or places of faith in the US is under 0.8%. So there's about 4 times, we have a while to go just to catch up, but I'd really like us to be leaders. So next. So as we said, we are presently building out 13 resilient hubs in Detroit through a community change grant, which was partly clawed back by this administration. But the key is that we put up solar storage, backup generation, and larger facilities, and then these other measures to make these food pantries and soup kitchens, these faith organizations, the place to go when the power goes out or there's other emergencies. And it's really important work. I think as we look at just solar being important, sure, it meets our earth care passions. It also meets an economic need. And so next. And yeah, I mean, why now is that the cost of energy is rising rather dramatically. The big billionaire bill expects to increase electric rates by 20 to 25% over the next 3 years. In Michigan, we're seeing over 5%, 6% this last year, and expecting 10+% this year increase in electric rates. As I said, the sunsetting incentives, more and more extreme weather, and we're starting a new financing tool into our, actually 2. One, last year we decided, Solar Faithful, to start investing in these projects ourselves. So we're bringing on grants, borrowing, and we'll design, build, own, operate, and provide savings to the organizations we work with. Also, we provide the other options of direct purchase with lending, and then there's a third option, which is kind of interesting, where it's a pre-purchase, where we'll take on and own the equipment for the 5 years. We'll do all of the incentive paperwork. We'll design, construct, build, and then at the end of you guys pay 70%, we pay for the incentives and then wait for recovery of that of those incentives. So it's a way to have a lower cost of your project. Next. As I said, in Michigan, we have increasing rates. We have, unfortunately, we have the two worst utilities in the country for outages. Number 1 and 2, DTE is number 1, Consumers is number 2. And so we have typically 3 to 4 outages of multi-day events a year. And so it's really dramatic, and the need for resiliency becomes even more important. Next. So the as I said, the baseline incentives is 30%. The domestic content, we believe we can reach domestic content on projects. And this means that there's 30 to 40% of your project. Next. So this these incentives, if we can get the project contracted by July the 4th and 5% paid, we have a 4-year window. This is particularly interesting if an organization has the desire to do the project, but may not have raised the money yet for the project. So they have a nice long window to raise the funds for a project. If you miss that, there's still time. We can get the project done by December 31st of 27. That's not going to be the end of the story. With the prices of electricity rising as high as they are going, we expect that the economics of doing solar will continue to be viable even after the incentives sunset. Next. Yes, as we have climate change and energy, the energy in our world is higher. We have more and more extreme weather events. Utilities have, at least in this part of the country, have done a very poor job of maintaining their infrastructure, and we have lots of outages because of it. So one of the answers to become independent of the utilities is to add solar and storage. Next. So yeah, I think we've discussed a little bit of the financing tools. Next. So the if we own, Solar Faithful owns, it's a 25-year agreement. What we do each month is we look at your electric bill after solar. We figure out what your electric bill would have been with solar, and we split that, we share that savings. And that way, the organization retains 10%, and we take the 90% to pay off the equipment and own and operate, and to build additional systems on additional faith organizations. We do all the O&M, we operate and maintain the equipment, and then at the end of the contract, you have 3 options. You take title, we remove it, or we can extend the agreement. And we're finding with the traditional methodology, and where we started, Solar Faithful did, was we had a PPA investor. And that is where the investor sets a rate, and it's stays fixed or fixed increase over time. And sometimes the utility rules change, and it can be possible and your usage may change, that you might have a negative savings, an actual cost to having solar on your roof. Well, um, organizations we've been contacting really did not feel comfortable with that. So then we chose to go to this shared savings agreement to make sure that there's never a possible negative cash flow situation. If the system doesn't work, there's zero savings. If the system is worked, there's 10% of the savings generated. Next. So as I said, there's 3 more options. There's direct purchase, which is always the best financial decision for for their community partner organizations. Borrowing, we have started collecting congregate lending to support these projects. And in some cases, what we're doing is we're using a crowdfunding site to allow us to take congregants from from the church that we're working with and use those funds to help fund the project, either for the church to own the project or for Solar Faithful to own and operate the equipment. And then, as I said, there's a prepaid option where the organization gets 30% discount on the construction cost. We do all the paperwork and for the recovering the incentives, and the organization owns the equipment at the end of the 5-year recapture period. Next. So we'll open it up to questions or.
Why don't we, Leo, do you want to go next and then we'll do Q&A, or how does that make sense?
Sure. I mean, it's a good opportunity for folks to post things into the Q&A, or you can save it for later if you want to ask on camera, but that would give our friends at Solar Faithful an opportunity to engage with it in the chat, and then we can sum everything up at the end. That works. Great.
Yeah, we can talk through some questions and answers. And I'm sure Leo will mention this, but we've had a lot of faith communities come through our program, and the financing is one of the trickiest parts. And I'm guessing that's why the adoption rates are so low with faith communities is the financing. Are there other
Yeah, I mean,
reasons for that?
it's several key problems. Faith organizations are very slow to make decisions. They use all the money that they get in to run the organization and to serve their community. So there's not a lot of capital available. Because they have, because they serve the community and they spend, basically it's till the mouth is the way I think of it. So that ends up preventing many organizations from even having the opportunity to borrow. So you have a lot of mounting financial drivers against investing in these projects, because the money could be better used elsewhere and all that. But I think that there is such a strong interest in moving, in earth care, that I think there's real opportunities.
Absolutely.
Do you guys want to ask the questions and I'll just answer them? Or do you want to go to your part of this and we'll finish it at the end?
Yeah, let's do that, because there might be
Okay.
some questions that people ask that are like Pennsylvania specific. That maybe that's helpful to do that first. Go ahead, Leo.
Sure. Thank you so much, Rob. But really love the fact that there's a real solution to financing solar for faith communities. It's been years of us trying to find something that would that would work so well and be so broadly applicable. So we are incredibly grateful for the collaboration. Yeah, so as Sharon mentioned up top, I'm the Director of Transformation for our Get Solar program, which this little snippet here describes. Ultimately, though, what I want folks to take away is that if you're an organization seeking solar in the state of Pennsylvania, we will help you figure that out. We work a pretty streamlined process. Sharon, if you go to the next slide, I think, okay, never mind. Sorry, it's further down. We do have a process I'll describe, kind of, yeah, thank you. Four-step process. Ultimately, if you don't know anything about solar, you're just thinking about it from a general idea, we can help you, educate you through that, give you a solar feasibility study, and you by the end of that process, you'll be a solar expert, right? Maybe that's a little ambitious, but you'll know what you need to know to be really to go out into the world and get competitive bids, which we can help you do. So we do have a bidding platform. We help organizations seek competitive bids from regional solar developers. That way you get the best value for your dollar, but also there's a vetting process so you can know and understand the folks that'll be working on your buildings that you genuinely care deeply about. Know that you have a trusted group of professionals. We have a vetting process that we go through to make sure that the folks that bid on any of our programs are fully qualified and have a really nice portfolio to show that they know what they're doing. Through our step 3, our review and comparisons, we help you really analyze those bids in an apples to apples fashion. So we'll take a look at all of the variables, the cost to install, the projected savings, the actual components of design, operations, maintenance, all those things with you. Of course, if you're taking advantage of an agreement like the one that my friends at Solar Faithful are offering, then you don't have to consider a lot of those things. But it is still nice to know that you're getting the lowest cost, best value, and or you're working, maybe priority for you is working with an installer that's just down the street or as close as possible. So we'll help you make those decisions in a way that's easy to compare in an apples to apples fashion. And this webinar is fully about number 4, which is trying to work with you to find a financing strategy so that you can actually complete the system. At the end of the day, being able to actually pay for the system is most of the work, right? I mean, we do a lot to help you go through those first couple steps, really streamlined way, but you have to be able to finance it. So it's really exciting to be able to take advantage of, another organization's capacity to provide the funding and ensure that you get savings so you just don't have to think about it anymore. Yeah, Sharon, if you can go back to the Get Solar slides. Thank you so much. Yeah, and it's just worth noting, a little bit about our success story and why you could trust us. And we've been around for several years doing this program. Solar can take a long time to develop, but we have right here between the projects that are fully installed or that are on their way to being installed, 44 successful projects. This comes through a variety of different programs that we run, and you'll see the iconography here. Get Solar Schools, obviously for schools, both faith-oriented and otherwise. There is a state grant available for schools. It does not include faith-based schools and private schools, but it does include any public school. That is a ruling application that's out right now. If you are connected to a school district that meets that requirement, you could reach out to us. We can help your school district get together a feasibility report for your application. It's a really nice grant and pays for a lot of the solar, and we can work with the school to figure out some of the details on financing the rest of the system. Get Solar Communities and Trailblazers are our programmatic work where we try to build up opportunities for solar development, maybe in communities that haven't had the financial advantages that some others have had. So we try to build solar programming and solar opportunities in places where it doesn't exist otherwise. And then we do have a volunteer program called the PA Solar Corps, where you can join us for a session once a month, and we do a little bit of volunteer mapping of solar opportunities in a given community. We also look at resiliency infrastructure, so we try to identify places that battery storage would have a real impact on a community. We're experiencing more and more power outages these days due to like the inclement weather challenges that we have that are increasing in intensity and variety. So it's nice to know that maybe there are opportunities to build in some resiliency centers across the state so that if the power goes out, there are places that people could go that could have refrigeration or, showers or just, general safety opportunities. So it's part of that program if anyone's interested in doing a little bit of volunteer work with us. Next slide, please. And another, program that we're doing in tandem to, what we're working on with our friends at Solar Faithful is an organization called Capital Good Fund, another nonprofit lender, doing a similar power purchase agreement approach, but focus more on for-profit entities, other, non-faith-based nonprofits, and municipal cohorts. This is a really exciting thing that we're actively working on right now, which you can see by the project count would really significantly ramp up our closure rate for projects through a program. And this just really speaks to the mission of the Get Solar program, which is not only helping organizations identify their solar potential, but working with you for maybe a number of years to identify a true pathway to completing your project. So we just want to put this slide in here to illustrate that we do work on these projects for a long time, and we do have a pretty good success rate to actually getting things out of the pipeline. Next slide, please. Yep, and then just in relief, high level numbers for all that would be 103 total solar projects, the 37 megawatts of solar, which if you're not super invested into the world of energy, so I like to say that for rooftop and ground mounted solar, that's a lot of solar. So it's a really exciting number for us to be able to show. Yeah, so, and a little bit more of like what that looks like tangibly. So this is a school district that we worked on. Part of the feasibility study is taking a look at the aerial imagery of where you want to put the solar. I like this example because it's a school that had a new roof and an older roof. It had a couple ground mount areas. So through our process, we looked at everything that was on the table and determined where the best locations for solar were, which ultimately for the school district ended up being only the new roof. The ground mount's a little small, not the best return on investment relative to that large roof. And at the old roof, it didn't make financial sense to replace it early to put solar up. So that's what was illustrated in this image, the process that we worked on start to finish to try to get arrive at what's the best version of solar for you. I mean, you might have an idea of where that is, and usually it's going to be a rooftop, but it might be a little bit more sophisticated than that, and we can help you figure that out. And on the next slides, there's a couple examples of the different array styles. So ground mount array, and this is a relatively large one near a road, but it can look a lot different than that. Like in the previous photos, it can be small. Like if you do have a building that maybe doesn't have the best roof or it's halfway through its life, so it's not a convenient time. There might be a little bit of ground space that works for it. And the really beautiful thing about ground mount arrays these days is that there are a lot of really fun environmental overlays that can be added to this installation. So what we see a lot now is pollinator friendly seeding that goes into the solar array so that one lowers the maintenance costs because you're not having somebody come and mow the grass all the time, but you have an environmentally positive space built around your solar where you have a diversity of native plants, giving food and shelter to insect populations that we desperately need. So really exciting opportunities there to integrate this into something a little bit more aesthetically pleasing and environmentally positive. Next slide, please. This is obviously a pretty big rooftop array, but rooftop arrays are usually either flat rooftops with ballasted systems. So if you have a flat rooftop and you're worried about holes getting punched into the roof, that's not the way this happens. Usually it's just a solar array weighed down, really relatively low impact, about 5 pounds per square foot or less. So there's a lot of reasons to like having solar on a flat rooftop. There's some data that suggests that it extends the life of your roof. And if you have a white reflective roof surface, we can use special modules that actually collect sunlight bouncing off of the rooftop and going into the panels from both sides. So it's a really cool approach. A lot of these buildings will probably have tilted roof angles. That's great too. There's plenty of ways that shingle or metal roof that can be applied without roof penetration, so it's just clamped to the edges. So a lot of variability here, and this is your most common solar installation type. And the last, but probably most challenging of the three, carports. This is the last resort often for organizations because they are a little bit more expensive. There's a little bit more infrastructure that has to go in to build the eaves to support. There's an element of steel and labor that does increase the cost. Speaking to the service agreement that our Solar Faithful is offering, these might not be the best opportunity because they do there's just going to be a higher degree of challenge to get an early rate of return that they're trying to promise. But it's something we can look at if those other options aren't available, and maybe there will be a window where it can make sense. So just want to put it out here. It is possible, but it is the most challenging way to do it. Next slide, please. Yeah, and just the other slide about the competitive bidding. Really the key we want to take away is even if you're figured out you want to go solar and you're really excited about the financing that's available here, but you will want to get a competitive bid, we can do the heavy lifting for you. I mean, our program really does take a lot of the strain off of you to go out, get the developers, get the bids, and then help you analyze it. If you already have a developer and you want to work with Solar Faithful, that's awesome. You're rocketing past where a lot of folks are, but if you're not there, we can help you get there, and we can do it pretty quickly. And this is just, another visual aid, just looking at some data side by side. We actually don't use this form anymore, but I just like the way it looks on a slide. But so I say we'll try to get as many bids as possible. And try to analyze like what's the comparison points so you can make a meaningful decision. Yeah, and then as far as next steps, if you want to work with us, you can always just reach out to me directly, leo@pasolarcenter.org. But our generic Get Solar address, info@pasolarcenter.org, will connect you to our team, and we can get you into our system. Another thing you can do is just go to pasolarcenter.org/getsolar. There's a form you can fill out there. It'll take you 30 seconds, and then we'll respond, probably the next day to schedule time with you. In the meantime, though, if you're thinking about this process and aren't sure, what would be very helpful is gathering recent electricity bills. If you have any information about your roof, structural drawings, that kind of stuff is less necessary, but really electricity bills and roof information, extremely helpful to have that handy. It's hard to know what your solar is going to do for you if we don't know what your energy costs right now. But the sooner we get those materials from you, the sooner you fill this out, faster we can get you through this. Given that, as Rob discussed, there are some important deadlines to meet, and they're coming up very quickly. Right, and that's it. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks so much, Leo. Looks like Rob, you've been busy answering questions, which is awesome.
I just cranked through all of them. Probably can answer additional questions if needed, but
Yeah, and if we wanted to, if there's any more context from any of that, I think.
yeah, I think the biggest thing that the very common question is, it's cloudy where I live.
Right.
Like, does solar really work? And the answer is pretty much everywhere. Price of electricity is high enough, the performance of solar panels work, and this is not a technology that's new. There is they've gotten a little bit better in the last few years in terms of the performance, but really this is long established. The first commercial panels were put out by Bell Labs in 1965. Half of those panels are still working. So think about an industry. It's really rather amazing.
Because the panels are usually warranted for 30 years, but that's
25
just
to
the
30 years.
warranty, and then they'll just keep
Right.
operating after
40
that.
plus years is our expectation for the life of panels. And the inverters last I've now been installing first on my buildings and then for others over 20 years. And we find that the even though the warranty for an inverter is 12 or 15 years, reality is we're approaching 20 years, often 20 plus years before they need to be replaced. So this is, good stable equipment that produce a very knowable amount, because there's calculators out there that use the actual data from the weather stations. Um,
Somebody
to,
else mentioned net metering. And if folks don't know what that is, we have a pretty good, it's one of the few really good policies we have in Pennsylvania is net metering. So you think about it like a bank account. So if you're producing energy, like on my house, March was a great month for me and I overproduced on a very small system. But so I overproduced, I'll get credit that rolls over for that extra energy that I put onto the grid. And then that'll keep going like through the summer. You're going to produce more. And then you get into months like November, December, January, days are shorter, sometimes they're much cloudier. So you'll be using the bank that you've built up during the year. And then we have the end of the year, which is in net metering world, is the end of May in Pennsylvania. And so there's a true up. So if you went that whole year, and you overproduced, the utility has to pay you for that excess generation. It's not at the same value as you got the energy credited month to month, but you're still getting compensation for that excess. So it's a really good, it is a good policy in Pennsylvania. And the way the solar size systems are sized or estimated are based on your annual electricity usage. So just think you'll be tied to the grid in most cases, unless you have a battery that can do that for you, which in most cases will be tied to the grid and that can act like your battery. At nighttime, you'll be pulling off the grid, and that during the day when you're producing solar energy, you use as much as you can in your building as you need. And any excess literally goes to your neighbor, and they're getting solar electrons. So I like to explain how that works so that people understand that. Sorry, Rob, I think you were going to talk about something. I started.
that's no, net metering is great. And other states have like other somewhere between the cost of energy and full retail rate is typically the range for compensation for outflow. And so that the key is outflow is when you generate more than you use in the building, then it flows out onto the grid. And then in the evenings or other cloudy times, you generate less than the grid, and so you are buying power from the grid. And in a net metering opportunity, then what you put on the grid gets credited at the same amount. And
Yep.
that's a lovely, I mean, that's really great that you have that. We used to have that in Michigan.
Well, that's our policy side. We're trying to protect that as much as we
Yeah.
can. So, um, and see, there's a question about recycling panels. I'm sorry, there are actually, I think there are two, at least there's one in the Southeast, panel or recycling entities that uh, do that whole process. So, and we see this industry gr really just growing across the country now. I know some of these panels, like Rob said, have been around for a long, long time. So they've been usable. So sometimes we'll see the lifetime, or there's some entities will replace their solar panels. This doesn't happen that often, but when the more efficient panels come out, they may replace them, but those panels they're taking down are still functional. So there's a couple nonprofits one is in Gambia that takes use solar panels, and they use them in Gambia, which is pretty exciting. And then of course, if the panel's broken, sometimes things will happen that it gets broken on the installation or very rarely does it just sitting on your roof. Maybe hail, but that's unusual. And then, oh, thank you, Liz. Yeah, Sycamore International. That's it. Chester County. They are a new business operation in the last few years that
Yeah,
does that.
there's actually about a dozen panel recycling companies around the country,
Mhm.
and all of them first check to see if the panel is functioning at all. And if they can repair the panel, they do. But the interesting thing is when they do repair the panel, it is no longer UDEL certified. And that's why those panels go to the third world countries at a very discounted rate. Great for them because they have a virtually new or what do you call it, refurbished panel, and probably a great deal life left in it at a very, very low price. And then if the panel can't be repaired or is damaged in a way that, you know, uh, can't be reused, then we're fine. The industry is getting up to about 85% of the materials recycled, which is exciting because we're starting to get to a real good place there.
Yeah, and it's largely silicon and glass. I mean, there are other things, but those are the major components in a solar panel and the back sheet and some of the framing. So it's actually pretty simple technology, and then the electrical wiring. Um, so yeah, there's a question about can solar panels be installed on slate roof? Oh, I think you maybe just answered.
Yep, I just answered that. Basically, we don't recommend putting it. It can be done. Basically, you take out the slate that's going to be underneath the roof, put a new roof membrane down, put the panels in, and then trim up the edges. It's fine. And then if you ever someday in the future you want to put them back, you can. But that's expensive. It's doesn't it yeah, it takes away from the historic nature of the building, and we recommend choosing another part of the roof or another ground mount or carport or something else. It probably is cheaper to do a carport than it is to do a slate roof.
I think that's probably true in most
Yeah.
cases. And there were other questions about roof that you answered. People didn't use them, but yes, you really would like the best scenario is that if you need a new roof, you should think about doing that first before you put solar on it because it's very expensive to take the solar off, re-roof, and put the panels back on. So you really want to start out with a roof that has a pretty good lifetime left to it. And
Right.
those panels are going to last 30 years, so you may need to at some point, um, but if you have a long life of your roof,
Right.
that's the best scenario.
Right. We believe that the roofs last 5 to 7 years longer with solar panels than without. That is our experience. Um, what usually happens is the stuff that's not underneath, I mean, doesn't have panels over it, the edges of the roof and other shingles and or parapet walls, those will fail before the panels do.
Leo, is there anything else you want to add about carports? So we get this question a lot. You talked about it a little bit, and I see, oh, Rob did answer this question. Um,
Yeah, carports are challenging just in that we kind of don't know until we know, unfortunately. So scale matters a bit. Obviously, like the larger you go, like with any solar design, you can trim on cost, but it's usually like a 50% increase in the cost of the array. Uh,
I don't think it's 50%. We've been doing
okay.
small, single, 4-car spots all the way up to full parking lots. And it typically is $1 a watt more to put carports on. And so for an average project, you're $2.50 to $3 a watt. Now you're $3.50 to $4 a watt installed. That's that's the numbers that we've been actually installing at those rates. And so Yeah, it makes it challenging because you've added 25% to the project cost. And you need to make up for that somewhere else or have some value that's driven by that.
And we'll put a caveat too. This is a joke in our organization that every single project is different in our,
Sure.
they all have different challenges and different considerations. And sometimes buildings that are very tall and steep roofs, more challenging and maybe cost a little bit more. Flat roofs, sometimes easier, but it depends. And it also depends on the electricity rate that you're paying, and what utility service area you're in. Um, and then sometimes there are labor differences between different parts of the state too. So that's why we all do, both organizations do what we do, modeling, to kind of figure out what those considerations are.
Yeah. I mean, we do work a range, but if you are looking at between $2 and $2.50 per watt, for an install, adding $1 is pretty close to percent. So it's definitely it's gonna change the numbers substantially, but I'd love that that's the thing that you folks feel good about doing. So it's a challenge for us to find the financing otherwise. So yeah, love to hear that. And of course, like if folks are coming to us for support through the Get Solar program, we'll take a look at everything you have. And it's nice to kind of compare. And we do see some folks try to just get as much solar up as possible, and sometimes that extends into the parking lot, which is great. One thing I did want to note, Sharon, is we did have somebody reach out about uh, obviously we're talking strictly about commercial solar, but one of the beautiful things about faith organizations is that you have congregations or you have participants, and you might want to have some resources to talk about um, solar on the homes of the folks that attend. And now the tax credit for residential customers has expired. There's still opportunities there. And frankly, cost of electricity is going to make solar appealing regardless of the tax credit. So I don't know if it's okay for me to share that.
Yes, if Solar United Neighbors has some resources, correct, that
Yeah. I have a
we
couple.
didn't make it into our slides, so but we will get that information out, and I think Leo's gonna put it in the chat. So that it's a great opportunity if I mean, whether your organization is thinking about going solar at your congregation or not, but if you are, that people could consider it themselves on their own homes. And we've seen this done in other faith communities, um, and even if your congregation isn't, it's still an opportunity to try to get folks involved in that level at their own homes. And sometimes we see solar, like group buy type of situations where we try to get like 20 congregants to try to get together to go solar and get a deal from a developer.
Yeah, I'm having Manette post in the chat. For whatever
Oh,
reason,
okay.
I can't message the group, only the host can.
Oh, you can't. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're right at the end of time. Are we going to have the slides and the presentation available?
Yes, they will go out probably within the week. We'll be able to get them out to everybody. And okay, if we include your contact information, Rob, in there.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, wonderful. You don't see any other questions?
And yes, TPO, PVC, rubber roofs, slate, I should say not slate, but shingled roofs, all of that will work. I just saw a few questions in there. And if you have a white roof, then it's possible that a portion of the incremental cost could be added to the solar project to decrease the cost of the roof a little. So,
And metal standing seam roofs are awesome. The
yes.
developers love them because they can just clamp right on to them,
Right,
and
make
they're one
no
of the
holes. Right.
really easy to install.
All right.
Well, Rob, thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you, Leo, and all of you who came aboard here today to join us. And feel free to reach out to our organizations. We would like more than nothing else than to help you all go solar. So have a wonderful weekend, and we will talk to you soon. Take care.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.